Did you know Christopher Nolan doesn't allow chairs on set? Well, now you know. Did you know he also hates plastic bottles on set? And if you know Nolan at all, you would know that the guy doesn't have an email or a smartphone. Tchaikosvky, he uses Instagram and makes Breaking Bad reels.
Now, say my name. Heisenberg. You're goddamn right.
The 20th century was an odd one to say the least. The century where humanity shone the brightest and the darkest. In the same century, we had goats like Claire Patterson clean the environment, Planck leading the charge for quantum mechanics, relativity being developed and put into use, and we were introduced to string theory, dark matter and dark energy. Rock and roll, jazz, hip-hop, pop, punk, grunge, metal, all of it developed in one century. But at the same time, we also has the worst of times. World War II, World War I, the Holocaust, Soviet apocalypse, many countries getting divided by bloody partitions. To quote Tale of the Two Cities by Charles Dickens, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Tale of the Two Cities, by the way, is the story referenced heavily in Nolan's Dark Knight Rises. But perhaps the greatest and the most controversial development of the 20th century was the atomic bomb. Humans can now wield nuclear power for good or ill. And the man behind it, Julius Robert Oppenheimer. And Christopher Nolan has always been the forefront of telling stories no one else has. Who could come up with Inception? Who else but Christopher Nolan to accurately depict a black hole? Who else but Nolan to tell the story of the man who made the atom bomb? This man revitalized the superhero genre and made it into serious cinema. It was started by Richard Donner's Superman, lifted to its heights by Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and solidified by Christopher Nolan, giving us one of the best depictions of Batman and one of the best acting performances in cinematic history. Strange as it is, without Christopher Nolan, we don't have an MCU, we don't have the Arkham games, we don't have Matt Reeves' Batman. At 7 years of age, Nolan started making movies on his father's Super 8 camera with his brother Jonathan. He made stop-motion animated videos and whatever he and his brother could run with. Even at this age, you could see Nolan preferring practical effects used in meticulous manner. It's often been a thing of wonder how great artists don't just leave things on any mode of automation. Miyazaki prefers hand-drawn animation, most filmmakers dislike the overuse of CGI, and Nolan builds these set pieces to provide an authentic feeling of the scenes. Perhaps an AI can stimulate gravity, but what's better than the real thing itself? Why wouldn't you flip a set piece around to stimulate gravity using pseudo-force to emphasize the weirdness of dreams? Why wouldn't you ask Kip Thorne himself to help you stimulate a black hole? Christopher Nolan is an artist because he cares so much about what he is making sure of every minute little detail. While studying English literature at University College London, he shot 16mm films at UCL's Film Society, where he learned the guerrilla techniques he would later use to make his first feature, following on a budget of around $6,000. His second film, Memento, was made on a budget of $8 million over a story that his brother came up on a road trip. People often point out how Nolan takes on grand and epic ideas about reality, but we have always believed it's how we perceive reality. Reality's relation with humanity. In Memento, Leonard blames the weakness of memory as an investigative tool. How memory can be untrusting compared to hard evidence. The evidence represents reality, yet Leonard's condition, his anterogate amnesia, make him unable to make new memories, make even hard evidences, as he is stuck in a never-ending loop. His dependence on evidence and not memories is a weakness that everyone exploits, especially the cop Teddy, who exploits Leonard's skill and conditions to serve his own ends. In the end, it's Leonard's memory of his wife that provides him semblance. Perhaps Inception is the opposite of Memento. In Memento, the protagonist holds reality over subconscious reality, but Inception is set in a subconscious world where characters bringing memories to the subconscious is a hazard and an anchor for their sanity, something Tom is losing. Tom is the hero, a Jungian hero. His shadow self is represented by Mal. A part of him he is hiding and repressing. A part of him that represents guilt. a corrupted memory of his wife. Every single character in a Jungian archetype, Dom is the hero, Mal is the anima, and she's the shadow. Dom's children are the persona, the opposite of shadow and his totem that hooks him to reality. Fisher is the fool, but also the hero of his own story. His father being his shadow, locked layers away. Saito is the ruler, Arthur is the magician, conjuring paradoxes and stimulating gravity. Yusuf is the everyman, Ariadne is the explorer, and EMS is the trickster. Dom frees Fisher from the grip of his shadow. He frees Saito, and by doing so, by doing a heroic escapade, he defeats his own shadow, his guilt. Inception is a heroic journey, and in the end, Dom gets out of his mental cage and only the good part of Mal, their children, remain. More than reality, it's always how reality affects people. What better example than Batman himself? Parents' death and the ugliness of Gotham pushed Bruce down a road of tragedy, but he chose to do better, chose to be a hero, chose to protect and fight for a better world. A magician play with the perception of one's reality, making the impossible possible for a moment. Prestige is Christopher Nolan's most meta movie. It's Nolan's The Departed, it's his Jurassic Park, his Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, his movie about movies, his movie about his movies. Are you watching closely? It's a line of dialogue delivered perfectly by Christian Bale.
Are you watching closely?
And it's a line that can be used for all of Nolan's filmography. He's asking the audience, he's asking you, are you watching closely? A movie is magic. A filmmaker tricks the audience to believe into something magical. A filmmaker can make wondrous worlds that do not exist, like a magician creates illusions. It's hypnotic and memorable, and we want a filmmaker to amaze us, to make a fool out of us and leave us asking questions. And Nolan does that. How did they do it? A question everyone asks after a good film and a good magic show. Prestige is a movie about death of the double, and like a magic trick, if closely followed, the answers are given, foreshadowed long before the ending. Tesla's machine never worked. Alfred Borden's twin brothers dies just like the little birds in the cage. Out of Olivia and Sarah, Sarah dies. The magic trick pulled by Nolan is that he made the audience believe that Tesla's machine worked, that there were clones. But that doesn't align with the story and its theme of following the three acts of magic: the pledge, the act, and prestige. Alfred and his assistant are the pledge. Alfred dying is the act, and him coming back is the prestige. If the same is applied to Robert Angier, things get muddy. Robert dying is the act and him coming back is the prestige, but the audience knows that he faked his own death. How can it be a magic trick if the audience knows the secret? Perhaps it was Robert's look-alike. Robert could mimic Borden's trick better than him with a look-alike. Perhaps it was Root that died. It fits with the symmetry of movie where one part of a pair dies, and it fits with the idea of the movie being a magic trick. Nolan tricked the audience into believing something else. Hence him asking at the end, are you watching closely? Asking the audience if what they concluded with was indeed the true solution. The relation between humans and reality is perhaps nowhere as evident as in Interstellar, arguably the best work. The theme, the sound, the depth, the VFX, the ideas, everything works in a beautiful harmony. The movie starts with the most accurate and realistic depiction of a society nearing apocalypse. It isn't heightened like a Walking Dead scenario. Shops and enterprises are open, but the delay is slow and cold. The attitude of humans in Interstellar, the characters who aren't scientists, is that we should focus on Earth instead of space. The teacher in Murph's school doubled down on this idea by propagating the false message that the moon landing was faked, to discourage students from taking bold steps. This might be a commentary on Nolan's part of the conversations we often hear. Why fund researchers and space explorations when we can spend that money on domestic issues? And Coop himself provided the answer. Coop's wife, Murphy's mother, died because the doctors couldn't identify the cyst in her brain after she died, as MRI machines were no longer available. Nolan knows his science because nuclear magnetic resonance imaging was first developed to look into the core of stars and the nuclear reactions within, until people realized the same principle can be used to detect tumors in a patient. Astrophysics and medicines, two seemingly unrelated fields, one affecting the other. How can we understand the importance of discovery if discovery itself is not met or is discouraged? What if the scientists of 20th century asked what's the point of sending things to space? We wouldn't have the internet, the massive network of interconnectivity. Interstellar works wonderfully even if the scientific principles are hard to understand. Humanity benefits from exploration. The cures to our problems lie outside our limitations and we must always push further. It's almost an irrational drive that pushes not only humans but all life. If animals don't migrate, if they don't look outside their habitat, they perish. Perhaps the goat of science on YouTube Vsauce explains it best.
That technology alone didn't allow humans to go to Madagascar, to Australia. Neanderthals built boats too. Instead, he says, there's, quote, some madness there. How many people must have sailed out and vanished on the Pacific before you found Easter Island? I mean, it's ridiculous. And why do you do that? Is it for the glory? For immortality? For curiosity? And now we go to Mars. We never stop. It's ridiculous.
And that is the crux of Interstellar. The madness of humanity isn't just madness. Coop goes out to space for his daughter, not knowing if the plan will ever work out. A rational decision might be to stay back and do something whose ends and solutions can be approximated. Similarly, Murph has no reasons to go back to her room. It is a father and daughter bond across space-time, almost like quantum entanglement, spooky action at a distance that draws them to each other. Spooky, like a ghost. Like Murphy's ghost is her father. There's no rational reason for this except love. Except that love of exploration and that benefits humanity. And exploration is a test of faith. Murphy believed her father will save her and he will return as he did, against all odds and breaking reality itself. Because her dad promised her. Even if you don't understand the science, you don't have to. All of us have the urge and curiosity to explore, and all of us can relate to loving people dearest to us, and that's what Interstellar is about. Everyone gets to enjoy his movies, everyone gets to feel his movies. That's what cinema is all about. As Scorsese said, you can go back and find new things to dig up. Pushing frontiers, all of Nolan's filmography is a testament to that. The harrowing reality made easier with faith and love. That's the kind of tales he likes telling. Telling stories we'll never see unless it's Nolan, and telling it like no one else. Many can make a western, many can make a crime drama, but it's only Nolan who can make Interstellar and Inception. Only Nolan can come up with Tenet and then shoot it completely with practical effects where another director would be compelled to use CGI. He's one of the few directors who approach war with a sensitivity and respect and uphold the gravity of tragedy without overly dramatizing it or making the tragedy flashy for the sake of cinematic flair. He deserves the world for what he has given us, and even if he doesn't win an Oscar, neither did his idol Stanley Kubrick. And Scorsese only has ever won one. It doesn't matter. He has a growing fan base and he makes movies that companies love throwing their money at, letting him get away with the most outrageous production choices because his films are critically and commercially acclaimed. Nolan makes movies that are thoughtful and deep and earn the studio's money. As we said, everyone gets to enjoy it. Geeks like us can debate and discuss it, or you can just watch it for the pure spectacle and awe of his movies. No matter what, he shall remain the Dark Knight of cinema.